Welcome, Managing Director. Thanks for joining us. Wanted to first ask about the G20 video chat that you had last night. What was your message to world leaders?
That we need to mobilize the whole world to step up action on containing the virus and also protecting the economies, and pay close attention to emerging markets and developing countries that are going to be very, very hard hit. We have an institution, the IMF, that is created for these moments of crisis. We are $1 trillion strong, thanks to our shareholders, including the US, that put our NAP, the capacity to increase our fighting the crisis, in the bill that went to Congress, for which we are very grateful. And we are stepping up enormously. We now have some 80 requests for emergency assistance. Never happened in the past, Sarah. At best, emergency assistance would be a handful of countries. Today, practically the whole world is in a status of emergency. So action,
I imagine,
together.
Yeah. No, on that point, action together, it doesn't feel, Managing Director, particularly coordinated right now. Every country sort of going on its own in terms of the strategy, particularly on the health side. What's the risk of doing that?
Well, the risk of doing that is we would be less effective. And in that sense, the G20 call yesterday was very helpful, because it did bring the leaders of the 20 largest economy, 85% of the world economy, together. And number one topic on their agenda was coordinating health response. We from the IMF are doing our part. We just launched yesterday Actions Tracker for 186 countries on the site of monetary and fiscal measures, and we are working very closely with WHO, the World Bank, and other institutions to make sure that we bring aggregate financing, aggregate demand, to be able to raise rapidly production capacity in countries where this is possible. So yes, this crisis hit countries falling like domino, one after another, and until it is your turn, you actually think that maybe you can escape, and that led to somewhat slower stepping up coordination. But I'm very encouraged by what I see now. I see much clearer understanding that if we don't beat it everywhere, we won't be able to get out of it. And as you know, Sarah, we have stated that the world is now in recession, and that the length and depth of this recession depends on these two things: containing the virus and having effective, coordinated response to the crisis.
There's a live debate about that, Managing Director, in this country, and I'm sure leaders around the world, and that is, we don't want the cure to be worse than the disease. It's something President Trump has tweeted. It's something that's up for debate. I mean, the economic fallout, the sudden stop of the economy, and the cost socially for public health, for economics that is going to bring could be very intense. How do you think about the trade-off of stopping your economy here to get the containment of the disease?
We actually strongly believe that taking aggressive actions on containment is a prerequisite for strong recovery. And in our scenarios for this year, and especially for 2021, the key determinant on whether we can have a sizable rebound is whether containment measures are applied effectively, and whether then they are followed, or actually simultaneously, whether there is a very strong set of monetary and fiscal measures. And what we see around the world is an incredible mobilization of monetary and fiscal measures. Never ever seen the global financial crisis with the 2% fiscal measures at that time looks like relatively easy a fight that had to be fought. Now we are seeing countries one after another coming up with 3%, 4%. The G20 announced that collectively they have deployed some $5 trillion of fiscal stimulus and guarantees. This is over 6% of global GDP. And I can tell you that getting those two things, the fight of the health crisis and then measures to buffer the impact on the economy so it can restart, they go hand in hand. There is no way to come to a strong recovery without strong containment.
Absolutely, and in this country we saw the fiscal stimulus make its way through Washington this week, $2 trillion. Is that going to be enough for the U.S.?
Everybody's asking this question. We will have to really see how the crisis evolves, but $2 trillion is a very potent weapon. And don't forget, it comes on the back of very strong measures taken by the Fed. Chairman Powell has been very aggressive to provide liquidity. On the $2 trillion, what we like about the package is that measures are really targeted in a smart way. One, a lot for the health system, $117 billion for hospitals. Two, protecting workers, protecting the American families. The injection of cash in the hands of people for 2 months, very important. Three, protecting the companies, both large companies, but especially medium-sized small companies, and doing so by providing an incentive to companies to keep their workers on the payroll. And I can tell you, the more we do to keep the companies from bankruptcy and keep workers not out and detached, the more we do that, the better off we are for the recovery. And of course, there is a lot that can be said on how this is going to also buffer the financial system. That kind of measures we see a lot around the world, and I can tell you we are very gratified. We have been advocating for this. Go big and target it, and we see that happening. Now, would it be enough? We will have to see how the containment efforts work. I choose to be optimist on the basis of what we have seen in China. Very strong containment. First quarter of the economy, it really tanked, but now the production is coming up to par, and China is actually turning into a source of medical equipment for the rest of the world on the back of what they have experienced in this crisis.
In the meantime, we've seen extremely volatile markets, default risk. Wondering what your take is here as companies have loaded up on debt, and now sovereigns, the countries, are loading up on even more debt. Is there a reckoning coming, and what does that look like?
We do worry about that. The IMF has been saying time and again, when you are in a good place, build your buffers. Now what we see is that both countries and companies that have done it are better positioned to withstand this crisis. We are working on the side of countries together with the World Bank. We have been calling for moratorium on debt service for low-income countries, especially those in high debt distress, until we can sort out what their position is, so there is no disorderly default, that we can actually, in an orderly manner, deal with this debt problem. On the side of companies, frankly, they do need the help right now. If they don't get this help, I worry very much about bankruptcies, layoffs that would make the recovery harder, but also they can erode the fabric of our society. Now, are we going to be dealing with this problem in the future? Yes, but interest rates are remarkably low. And we are seeing them staying low for quite some time. So we would have space to deal with the problem of debt in the future, but we should not go drip, 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 drip with small measures now when we know it is a gigantic crisis. We have never had the world economy standing still. Now it does. How we go about revitalizing it is another important topic, and at the fund we are investing a lot of time thinking about it, about the recovery that will come.
How quickly can it come? Can it be a light switch that's just turned on?
Well, I am afraid it's not going to be like a light switch because remember my analogy with the domino falling. Countries have been falling because of this crisis, or in the hands of this crisis, after another. So that chain means also that the recovery is going to be in some sequence. Getting the whole world to work again is not going to be a simple and light switching proposition. But countries that are serious about their containment measures and are serious about especially their targeted fiscal stimulus, they're likely to move faster on towards this road to recovery. And I do really hope that the US is going to be one of these countries for the sake of the American people. For the sake of my staff, we work and live here in the United States, but also for the sake of the rest of the world. The US is so important, the largest economy, that what happens here resonates elsewhere. So the US recovering more rapidly can pull the world economy on the recovery path.